Hello and welcome to Professor Bets. Today we're going to be talking about the 76ers and the Brooklyn Nets and their trade that happened just before the 2022 NBA trade deadline. Both of these teams find themselves in very similar positions midway through the season, as they're both very talented teams that we believe will be at the top of the Eastern Conference at the end of the year, but they're patching holes, they're fixing some stuff, as they've had a lot of issues from inside and outside their organization. With both of these teams, we've had huge stars and a lot of grumbling, starting from last year's postseason, moving through the offseason and into this new year. Both teams are extremely noisy and look to at least get a little bit better and cut some losses here. I have a little bit of a feel of desperation coming from both teams, as they don't know exactly how bad each problem has gotten, and the more that time goes on, the lesser the trade value of these stars were. With that being said, they go ahead and make the moves here. Starting with the 76ers, getting James Harden, we have to talk about what an addition that is to any team. He's absolutely a go for a triple-double at any given night, and last year's performance of his on the Brooklyn Nets shows us that he can really do anything you ask him to a certain degree on the offensive end. He can pass the ball, he can rebound, he can shoot the ball from really anywhere. We all know what James Harden gives us. He is the best player in this trade, without a doubt. At no point do I want you to think that maybe I think that he's not the best player in this trade. I'm high on Ben Simmons. Guess what? James Harden is a much better player. But when you add him into Embiid, and Embiid right now is in a very tight playoff race, I really have to wonder, how is Embiid going to kind of relinquish some of the load here that he is getting praised for carrying at this moment? If that transition goes a little bit easier, I still have some questions. Joel Embiid, paint player for the most part, that's where he dominates. When James Harden really is at his best, it's when he's getting into the paint as well. I wonder how that works out, but I'm not having too many questions. I think that James Harden will be very productive in the 76ers organization, especially this year. Moving into that second part of that 76er trade, and I'll be honest, I'm not going to try to hype importance onto something that's not. They go ahead and get Paul Millsap, just more of a contract dispute thing. You get some players back. He's really going to be a piece that maybe never even sees the floor for more than 8 minutes throughout the season. Now, like I said, both teams had a little bit of desperation. Both teams had some issue, but I feel like what the Nets were able to receive was a lot more beneficial to what they were needing as a team. If you were to ask me to break down the Nets beforehand, I would say all offense, very little defense. You have some great defensive players, but not enough. And you really lack in size and rebounding. Well, guess what? They kind of grabbed a little bit of all of that. At the beginning, you get Ben Simmons, and Ben Simmons for this team is tailor-made. For a team that isn't very big, the team that can switch on anybody, you have Bruce Brown, who's a ferocious defender, but then you have the kind of mostly just all offensive players. A guy like Ben Simmons who can switch on any player and D them up at a defensive player of the year level. That is something that gives the Nets a lot of different options, especially in the fast break, so many different things. And playing as small as the Nets do on offense allows Ben Simmons to get into the paint a little bit, as well as dish the ball, something he does very well. I don't want you to forget exactly what Ben Simmons is capable of in the NBA, because we haven't seen him in a while. There's no need for this recency bias that he sucks. He's going to be an absolutely phenomenal player for the Nets, and he's in a great system where he can really thrive. Moving down into what the Nets got, though, we talk about Andre Drummond, and if you would ask me, how can the Nets immediately get better? It's to add a little bit of size. Blake Griffin, DeMarcus Aldridge, both have been traditionally power forwards. It's now very common to move those down to fives, but you see them really struggle against teams of size. Well, this gets a little bit better now that you have Andre Drummond, a monster rebounder. He's going to get the rebounds. He's a little bit of a paint protector, not so much, but in comparison to what the Nets already have, you have to say that Andre Drummond's the exact right fit for a second player. It may seem like a small pickup, but who cares? Andre Drummond moves around the league. This is somebody who can help them win this year. And finally, and one of my favorite grabs here is Seth Curry, 40% three-point shooter. That's exactly who you want on a team. Seth Curry shoots the three ball very well, has some passing ability too, really works as the shooter of a team that's missing Joe Harris and Kyrie Irving on most nights will have a great option to go to, pass in a corner for a three ball that's easier to knock down. So far, with the loss of Joe Harris and many other players, they've really lacked that three-point danger that makes them such a deep team, because when you have Kyrie Irving, when you have Durant, and when you have another three-point shooter, suddenly the half court feels really big and there seems like there's a lot of holes in defense. That's because of that shooting. That's how far you have to guard these players when they have the ball. And for Curry, when he doesn't have the ball, you still must be all over him. Now, the picks are a little bit harder to get into. We'll glance over them a little bit. Now, there's always the unprotected, protected. They could push it back a year. But we have right now the 2022 first round pick. That's a great pickup for the Nets. That's a trading piece if they need to mix things around after this season. And then they have the 2027 top 8 protected pick. Now, once again, a first round pick is great by any means, but that's not really a whole lot to add here. This looks like a great lineup, and as KD gets healthy and as Kyrie gets to play more games, hopefully further on in the season, we're going to see a Nets team that looks very, very scary. With Joe Harris likely coming back, there will be a three-point sniper on the floor at all times during a game. That works wonders for a team with a big like Embiid, who attracts so much attention. You pitch it out, you get that easy three. Embiid gets the assist. He looks great for the MVP race. So after breaking this all down, I have to go ahead and say, if you ask me to lean any sort of way, the Nets definitely got a lot, but this is a win for both teams, as both were losing their superstar battles and had to go ahead and make a plea deal to possibly contend this season. Please go ahead and like and subscribe to this video. If you enjoyed this video, we're trying to get out content, so your likes tell me what you enjoy, what more content you want to see. That's something you got to let me know. So make sure you put in the comments you're liking these videos and you're subscribing. If you enjoy betting, check out my NBA betting tips. Those are 15 seconds where I give you 3 picks on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We're going to be doing so many new things